Hello folks, this is Sula speaking. You're listening to another video for Teamfight Tactics. We are at the end of set 7.5. This is a game that I played together with Antisocialmunky on the day before set 8 went on to the public beta environment, the PBE. So this may be the last video that I do for set 7.5. We'll have to see. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up getting some additional footage here and there and I end up recording another video at some point, but might be the end of the set. So before we dive into set 8 content, I am going to do my traditional look back at the set that we just had, set 7.5, Uncharted Realms, try to talk about what was good in this set, what wasn't so good in this set, and give some overall impressions. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about this game that's in the background because this was a very fun game that Antisocial and I ended up playing. Well, overall, I think that this was a pretty good set. I don't think it was an amazing set. I think it was pretty good overall. It was a major improvement over the first half of set 7, which was honestly just a big mess. When I wrote up my thoughts on the first half of set 7, my overriding impression was it was somewhat fun to play, but it was fun to play in spite of the developers, not because of the developers. It was kind of despite their best efforts to screw things up, it still ended up being reasonably fun. Set 7.5 got a lot less attention from the developers, and as I'll talk more about in a minute, that was not a bad thing. The fact that they mostly left this set alone and did just smaller tweaks to it meant that it actually ended up being a decent set. I don't think it was top tier. This was definitely not as good as the best sets like set 4 and set 6, which I think are the best sets that they produced thus far. Definitely wasn't as good as they were, but it was still a pretty good set. And you know, I will give them credit because it was better than the first half of the set. And that's something that has not been the case for most of the other sets. A lot of the other sets got noticeably worse as they continued onwards. All right, well, anyway, as far as what's going on in the game, I am going to be playing into an Astral board. That is not exactly uncommon that people will play an Astral opener, but it turns out that this is not just going to be an Astral opener. This is just going to be a straight up Astral for the entire game. And the reason why I know that's going to be the case happens when I get this augment choice here. Protectors of the Cosmos. Combat start, your team gains a 35 health shield for every item component equipped on an Astral champion. Gain a Lux. So this is perfect if you want to play an Astral game. I have gotten this augment that basically works like scrap from set 6. The more item components you have on your units, the larger the shield that you end up getting. But just to be clear, it's only shield components that go on Astral units. It's not just on any units themselves. It has to be on Astral units. So if you take this, you generally want to play heavily into the Astral trait, or else you're not going to be making use of the extra shield that you get from the components. So we're going to play heavy into Astral trait. Antisocial is going to be playing Cluttered Mind, and he is looking to play into Shiou and Siphon. He actually needs to play them to get some kind of past XP reward. He was trying to knock those off his list, the ones he hadn't done here at the end of the set. So that's what we're going to be driving towards in this game. All right, well, now that I've given you a little background on what we're going to be playing in this game, let's talk a bit about set 7.5 in general. So we're going to start with the good things, and we're going to start with the most important and best improvement made here in the second half of the set, in set 7.5. And that is dropping the idiotic requirement that teams could only play one dragon at a time from the first half of the set. This was a very stupid idea. I don't know why the developers did this. In the first half of set 7, you could only play one dragon at a time unless you had the very rare augments, the Dragon Horde, Dragon Alliance. You know, you might see them like once in every 10 games, every 15 games, something like that. Unless you had those, you could only play one dragon at a time. I mean, I guess technically you could put them on the board, but they didn't get their tripled trait, and they didn't get the bonus health that dragons would get from playing one at a time. So for all intents and purposes, you could only play one dragon at a time. This was really silly. It greatly limited team flexibility. As soon as you had one dragon on your board, the other 6 were completely useless in the shop. They just locked them out completely. It meant that you really could not flex between very many team comps. It basically locked people into highly rigid teams. So like, let's say you want to play Deja. Okay, well, you basically have to play Mirage. You can't really play anything else because if you're playing Deja, every other dragon immediately goes off the board. There are a lot of games, for instance, where I would have liked to have played both Deja and Idis in the first half of the set, but it's like, nope, can't do that. Once you've got one dragon, you're locked out of all the others. I really don't know what the development team was thinking when they came up with that restriction. I guess the idea was, hey, everybody's going to play one dragon, and then you'll build your team around this one dragon. And then, that's the theme of the set is dragons. So everyone will just play like one very strong dragon. But it was just a dumb idea. It didn't really make a lot of sense. It limited flexibility. And it was just not a smart idea. So fortunately here in the second half of the set 7.5 did away with this restriction. The developers made the dragon trait into a trait like Guild, whereby as you played more dragons, you would gain additional stacking bonuses for each one. And this made a ton of sense. This was a really smart decision. It just opened up so much flexibility in the different team compositions. Now, if you wanted to play Idis, well, guess what? Now you're not locked into playing no other dragons. You could play Idis for tanky frontline, and then you could play whatever you wanted behind that. It was pretty common, for instance, to play Idis together with Deja, but that certainly wasn't the only thing people could play. It was very common for people to play the two Bash Brother dragons, the ones that Antisocialmunky is going to play into in this game. Shiryu and Siphon were played together very, very frequently by people in this set. In fact, it's kind of rare to see one without the other by the other half of the set. You would also see a lot of the late game dragons played together. So maybe someone plays Terra for frontline, and then they've got Al-Shin or Aurelion Sol in the backline as a damage dealer. And then maybe they've got a Shiryu for like a tanky bruiser that also deals damage. There are just a lot of different possibilities and a lot of flexibility in the team composition. So this was a very, very dumb restriction in the first half of the set. I honestly think it was the single worst idea that they had in Teamfight Tactics since the shadow items in set 5, which are maybe the worst idea in Teamfight Tactics history. At least if we're throwing out some of the stuff from set 1, like Phantom Trade and Hextech Trade or whatever. So it was not a good idea, and it was great that they scrapped this because it really did open up the gameplay a lot more. I know I had a lot more fun playing the teams in the second half of the set because I did not feel as though I was limited to the same degree as from the first half of the set. All right, well, here in the actual gameplay you're watching, I was not able to get a spellcasting item off the carousel, so I have just taken a cloak for a frontline item. I definitely want to put that on an Astral Champ. Skarner is the logical one to put it on because that's going to give me additional shield value. I'd like to say additional scrap value because I played a lot of games with scrap trait back in set 6, but additional astral shielding value in this game. Anyway, so we talked about the single biggest improvement, removing that really stupid one dragon restriction. Next biggest improvement in the set was just adding more dragons in general. So no dragons were removed in the second half of the set. And in fact, additional dragons were added in the form of Zippy and Namzi and Soam. I believe those were the 3. Oh, and Terra. They also added Terra as well. So I believe they went from 7 dragons to 11 dragons overall. I know I was a little bit skeptical about this at first when I saw that they were going to lean even more heavily into the dragons in the second half of the set. But it actually proved to be a good decision because many of these dragons were pretty splashable. Zippy in particular was very splashable into your team compositions. There were a number of times where it's like, oh, you just want to play another unit that's going to give you additional guild value, sure, toss Zippy on the board for the mid game, and maybe you replace him with someone else later on. But that actually did improve the gameplay by having a guild dragon that would give you extra ranks of the guild trait. By having the late game tank dragon in the form of Terra. Terra was also a splashable dragon. Terra you could just throw on the board in the late game. If you have Terra 2-star, you have good frontline, regardless of what else you might be playing. So, oh, and they also added Soam, so they had an actual mage dragon in the form of Soam, which also was a good addition to the gameplay. Aurelion Sol and Al-Shin are both basically spellcaster dragons, but neither one actually had the mage trait, and it always felt like the set was missing a mage dragon. So they added Soam to the overall composition of the set, and that was a good addition as well. Plus, you had Namzi, who had 3 different traits. Now, granted, I don't think that Namzi worked out quite as well as the developers were hoping, largely because mostly the only Namzi that ever really got played was the Mage Namzi. Cannoneer was actually overpowered for like the first patch of the set, but nobody ever really played Evoker, and after the early stages of the set, nobody really played Cannoneer. So Namzi was maybe a bit of a miss as far as the design team and what they were trying to get. But still, really cool ideas. It turned out that just adding more dragons and turning the dragon trait into a stackable guild-like trait actually worked pretty well. So definitely improved the overall balance of the set and made for an experience that was more fun than the sharply limited dragon setup in the first half of the set. So I would say that that was also a real improvement in the second half of the set. Now, other things that were better in the second half of the set. Well, the other really, really big one that stands out to me is the balancing was just way better. The first half of set 7 was an absolute mess, and I don't really know how else to put it. It was just a total mess. The balancing was horrible. consistently horrible throughout the set. There were so many B patches and hotfix nerfs and hotfix buffs. There was a point, they could not even get through 1 week without releasing a patch, and it was just driving me crazy. The fact that the gameplay was changing constantly. They just seemed to overbuff units like that made no sense whatsoever. I know I wrote about this on my website when I was doing my retrospective for the first half of the set, but like just crazy, insane buffs to Volibear in one patch, and then it was so bad that like 24 hours later they hotfix nerfed the buffs that they had just put in place. And then there was the week where Aurelion Sol was just so unbelievably overpowered, it was ridiculous. So all sorts of crazy stuff. The balancing was awful. It seesawed around like crazy. The overall set was not flexible to play. It was not good, guys. It was a total mess. I said on my website that it was the worst balancing that they had done that I could remember, and certainly relative to when Teamfight Tactics came out. Like, this is set 7. You would expect them to be better at the balancing in set 7 than in like set 1 or set 2 or whatever. So relative to how many sets have been released, I think it was the worst patching and balancing job of any set that they've released, given the experience that the development team should have had from, having done 6 previous sets. So an absolute nightmare. The second half of the set was just like the balancing was okay. It wasn't amazing, but I think it was mostly pretty good. In most of the patches, there were a number of different team compositions that could be played. There weren't too many patches where there was just like one team comp that absolutely dominated everything. So overall, like I said, it wasn't amazing, but it was pretty good. It was pretty good overall. It was certainly passable. And the other thing I have to say is they just didn't release as many patches. So that's going to get into kind of my last big point for what I think was better in set 7.5. And that is that the developers just left the game alone, which is something I've been asking them to do for ages and ages and ages. People who have watched my channel, who've read the write-ups on the website, know that I have been beating this drum for a very, very long time. They patch way too much. They tinker way, way, way too much. They won't leave things alone. So just not patching to the same degree was a huge bonus for this set. I'll come back to this point in a minute. I did want to mention the augment that I'm taking here. It is a prismatic augment here. And I thought about re-rolling this, but ultimately I decided to go with Exiles here. So Exiles is if your units do not stand next to each other, they get a shield that's based on a percentage of maximum health, up to 50% of their max HP. Basically what I was thinking here is I'm going to lean very heavily into the shield aspect. I'm going to get shielding from that Protectors of the Cosmos augment, and then I'm going to get more shielding from Exiles. And I'm looking to play into Aurelion Sol long term. What does Aurelion Sol want? Well, Aurelion Sol compositions are basically stall compositions. You want to stall until Aurelion Sol ascends, which I believe is 20 seconds into the combat. It's either 15 or 20 seconds. So you basically want to stall the board until you're able to hit his ascension, and then his ult hits the entire board. So having these humongous shields on your whole team is going to be really nice, because the weakness of a board like this is poor frontline. They're basically playing Skarner and eventually Silas for frontline, and that's not especially strong frontline. So the shielding, I figure, is actually going to be a pretty good fit for this particular team composition. Now, I also need to say a word about what Antisocial is doing in this game. Antisocialmunky is playing into Shioyu and Siphon. He has found a Shioyu at level 5 at 2% odds. He has found a Siphon at level 6 at 5% odds. So he is high rolling pretty good here. He already has a Shioyu and a Siphon, and he's level 6. So that's actually going to influence my gameplay here. This is a double-up game, 2-player game. I am not going to look to level aggressively. Oftentimes, I'll level aggressively to try and get more units into play early. I am not going to level to 7 early. My thinking is my partner's board is really strong. He has 6 Jade, 4 Whisperers already. He's going to be able to carry me through the mid-game. So I'm going to play economically. I'm going to play greedy, as I would often say, and rely on my partner to carry me. So I'm hoping that ASM is going to come in and save my butt in a lot of these fights. But as I said, I know his board's going to be super strong for this point in time in the game. So I think I can afford to play more greedy. And those are the kind of things you have to be thinking about in double up, because it is a 2-player game. All right, so going back to our point about the set, I mentioned we'd be going back and forth throughout this video doing that. So as I said, the big thing was the developers just largely stayed away. They did not release a billion hotfix patches. They did not come out with a ton of B patches. I think they only had 2 B patches for the whole set, which is really low by the standards of Teamfight Tactics. There were long periods of time where just the game was pretty stable. And I don't think that the balance was necessarily amazing. It was okay, as I said before. Balance was just kind of okay, but it was stable. It stayed in place. it didn't change every 3 days. It didn't change every 48 hours. We actually just got to stay on the same patch for a while. So I was very happy with that. Now, again, I'm not one of those people who plays 10 games a day. The people who do play 10 games a day, maybe they were tired, maybe they got bored. But from my perspective, backing off, letting the game breathe, not trying to change things up to a ridiculous degree was much better for the health of this game. And it definitely led to me enjoying the game much. So overall, that was another big improvement. I mean, we know why they were doing that. They were working on set 8. Set 8 looks like a very ambitious set, and they were putting their development time into that. So this is another point in time where neglect on the part of the developers actually ends up being a good thing. As you see me put this Zerat portal on Skarner. So again, we're going to stack even more frontline here is the goal. Just trying to stall so that we can eventually kill the rest of the team with Aurelian Sol, who of course we have not found yet. But that is the hope to find him later on in this game. All right. So those are the things that I think the set did well. Let's go ahead and then try to cover some of the things that were not as good in this set. Because I said that overall, I think this set graded out as like maybe slightly above average. Not one of the best sets, but certainly far from the worst set overall. So what exactly could they have done better? What were some things that still needed tweaking? Well, the top thing is the dragons as a concept were pretty neat. Like thematically, I think they were pretty neat. I think that the developers did a good job of creating these new dragons that, don't actually exist in League of Legends, unlike everything else in Teamfight Tactics, which is pulled over from League of Legends. The dragons don't actually exist in League, so they had to create new identities for these units that didn't exist and come up with new animations, that sort of thing. So I think they did a good job with that. But with that said, even though it was a good fit thematically and they created these pretty interesting units, it's still the case that the dragons couldn't really be balanced. So dragons were never really able to be balanced in this set. It's just kind of this fundamental issue. They take up 2 team slots at once, so they need to have the power of 2 units to be worth playing. But as soon as that happens, you run the risk of exactly what Antisocialmunky did in this game. He found a Shi-OU at level 5, and then all of a sudden, it's like hitting 2 different 4-cost units at 2% odds. So he got the unit at 2% odds, but it was functionally equivalent to getting a pair of them at the same time, if you were going to be thinking in terms of other sets. Riot Mort said that he considered hitting one of the dragons at the 4-cost tier to be kind of like hitting a Jhin and an Orianna from set 6 together. Like Jhin and Orianna were pretty much always played together in the previous set. So it's kind of an apt comparison. He said that was kind of the power level that they were shooting for. But while you could hit a Shi-OU at 2% odds, as Antisocial did here, back in set 6, you were not going to hit a Jinx and an Orianna at 2% odds. You might hit one of them, but you weren't going to hit 2 of them at the same time. So that was kind of a bigger thing. The dragons were always very, very difficult to balance because they had to be strong enough to be worth playing. At the beginning of set 7, they were not worth playing, and people weren't even playing Shyvana in their Xayah comps. Shyvana, the Ragewing Dragon, wasn't even in the Ragewing team comps because the dragons were just that underpowered. So they were really difficult to balance because either they were not worth playing and not worth eating up the 2 slots, or they were just overpowered. And then you ran the risk of people high rolling the dragons and it not being fun for people to play. So that was also pretty common as well. By the way, look what we're going to get here. We're going to get a spatula here. And as soon as we see this, we actually both got spatulas from our last minion round. So Antisocial is actually going to send me a 2-star Silas with a spatula on it. So we're just going to combine that together into the Tactician's Crown, the old Crown of Champions. And so that's going to let me play an additional unit on the board. So I'm going to toss Varus on my board. And now I have 5 Astral in. 5 Astral is going to give me additional ability power for all of my Astral units. Also note that Lux is holding items for Aurelian Sol. And I also have an item remover, which means that I will not have to sell Lux. I'll be able to pop these items off Lux. That's going to let me push towards Lux 3-star, and then I can pop these items off and put them on an Aurelian Sol. I actually have very good Aurelian Sol items here. I have a blue buff. Aurelian Sol wants blue. He does not want Spear of Shojin. He wants blue buff. Then I also have a Jeweled Gauntlet, and then I also have a Gunblade, which is really nice because it allows him to drain tank the enemy team. If he's the last unit left alive, he can actually drain tank and survive fights. Also, one more note I want to make here. Notice that I have put the Tactician's Crown on Vladimir, just as it was for Scrap Trade back in set 6. Putting the Tactician's Crown on Vlad actually does count for additional shielding via that Protector of the Cosmos augment that I'm running. And then look what I get here. I get Cybernetic Uplink for my last augment. I'm like, well, I'm going to take that. So this is going to give me additional health. and also additional mana generation for any unit holding an item. Well, guess what? I'm going to have a lot of items to play around with, so I should be able to get the cybernetic benefit on a lot of units before the end of this game. Remember, if I get astral trait high enough, I can start getting items out of the astral trait, which again will mean more shielding via Protector of the Cosmos, and will also mean additional health and mana generation from cybernetic uplink. So overall, this is a pretty nice setup here. What I need to do is I need to get Malphite out of this board and put in another mage so I can get 5 mages. I'm actually very sloppy about doing that. It takes me a long time to do that because I think I went by, I think I needed to pick up Lilia, and I just missed some Lilias in the store. Anyway, we've been on a big win streak, so we're feeling pretty comfortable in this game, and we're hoping that we can start to put our boards together going forward here. All right, well, as I said, going back to flaws for the set, getting back to kind of our retrospective on set 7.5, I talked about how the dragons still couldn't really be balanced. This was also a real problem towards the later, like the second half of set 7.5, was the developers kind of played heavily into the late game dragons, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but they wanted the dragons to be strong because they were the featured units for the set. They wanted people to be playing into these dragon units, so they really made the late game dragons very, very strong. But again, the problem with that is if you just high rolled and hit the dragons, then suddenly your board would spike super duper hard. People hitting an Alshin on level 7 at 1% odds, or someone who has a champion duplicator. Let's say they get one Alshin at 1% odds, then they hit another one at 4% odds. They have a champion duplicator. Now all of a sudden they've got a 2-star Alshin and their board's like completely unbeatable. So just a little bit too easy to high roll in situations like that, a little bit too strong. And that was the problem with the dragons. You just couldn't really balance them because if someone hits a 2-star, 5-cost dragon, I guess technically 8 cost, but at the 5-cost tier, then, they're just that there's so much power in that unit that they just kind of like win the lobby unless other people are able to high roll to an equal degree. So just a little bit too binary. The developers have definitely said there's going to be no more units that eat up 2 slots for a long, long time. They've kind of exhausted this idea, and they're not going back to it. So it wasn't a bad idea to try, but I don't think it was the best idea to build this set around. Like, there's some sets where the ideas are really big hits. Chosen Mechanic, obviously a big hit in set 4. The Hextech Augments, a big hit in set 6. They've been made a permanent part of Teamfight Tactics, so obviously a big hit in that regard. And other set mechanics that just don't really work that well. The Dragon's just not one of the mechanics that work that well. The developers said that the mechanic for set 7 was Hextech Augments, but it really was the Dragons. They can say whatever they want. It really was the Dragons. Just not really a great fit. Just, okay. They tried something. It was all right. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't terrible. I mean, it wasn't shadow items. But I don't think it was great, so I don't think they'll be going back to that. So they did their best. They definitely got better in set 7.5 as compared to set 7, but the Dragons, you still couldn't really balance them. Still couldn't really do it, unfortunately. All right, that was really the biggest issue, but there are some other things I want to cover as well. Next thing I have written down here is just too many econ traits. There are too many different economic traits here in set 7.5. They just overdid it in terms of the economic traits. By the way, I went by a Lilia in the store, and I 100% should have taken out that Malphite and put in Lilia, so that's a big mistake on my part there. There are too many. So in the first half of the set, there were already some economic traits, right? So you had in the first half of the set Shimmer Scale, which was an economic trait. Put in the Shimmer Scale units, and you get the Shimmer Scale items. Probably the best economic trait in this set, just in terms of how it was created. I actually think Shimmer Scale is a pretty neat idea, even if it wasn't always balanced to an amazingly well. It was a cool idea nonetheless. So we have Shimmer Scale, and then the other economic trait was Astral. Now, I don't love the way Astral trait was implemented. Astral trait in the first half of the set was just kind of a real nightmare from a balance perspective. It changed the shop odds. People might recall every 5th shop was an Astral shop, and you would have increased odds to see additional Astral champs. I think you were guaranteed to have 3 Astral champs in the shop when you got an Astral shop. So anything that changes the shop odds is really bad from balance purposes. There were so many issues with Astral. In the second half of the set, they changed Astral, so it was a less interesting trait, but it was more balanced. I mean, you've been seeing me run it here. Astral trait, after each PvP combat, you get an orb, and the quality of the orb basically goes up as you have more Astral units. It's not based on the Astral level over there on the side. Like Astral 5 does not do anything, just provides additional ability power. It was based on how many star levels of Astral units you had on the board. So right now I have 10 Astral star levels. Yeah, I have all the Astral units, and they're all 2-starred. So I have 10 Astral stars, and that means I'm getting orbs that have average quality of about 3 to 3.5 gold, if I remember correctly. So overall, like, not bad. They certainly fixed a lot of the issues with Astral Trait. It was definitely much more balanced, but not as interesting of a trait, certainly, as in the first half of the set. The problem is they added another economic trait on top of that. Lagoon was another economic trait. As Lagoon units cast more spells, then you would get these rewards out of the Lagoon Seashell, and that was all predetermined ahead of time based on how many stacks that you had, based on a counter that was never displayed anywhere in game. So you had to know just like outside of game that when you got when you got 80 Lagoon stacks, you got an item component, and when you got 400, you got a champion duplicator. So this was another economic trait, and I just don't feel like the set needed another economic trait. Then on top of that, there's actually yet another economic trait too. It was when the Mirage trait rolled as pirates, you had another economic trait. So there could actually be as many as 4 economic traits in the game simultaneously. And I just don't think that was really all that good. It just injected a little bit too much gold into the game. A little bit too easy just to push to level 9 early on. By the way, did I remember to pick up this Lux here in the store? I'm actually trying to remember if I picked this up or not. Anyway, so I'm going to take the Treasure Dragon. I'm going to put the Rage Blade on Varus. He can turn into like a 3rd tier carry. Going to make the Sunfire because I don't have a heal cut. All right, there we go. I did manage to find the Lux. And I think overall that was a pretty good Treasure Dragon for me. But anyway, yeah, so there are just too many economic traits, a little bit too easy to push to level 9 and then play a whole bunch of dragon units. And in particular, if, like I said, if Pirates was the Mirage trait, that's when it really got out of hand. I don't feel like the gameplay is ever really healthy when like the entire lobby is just playing garbage boards and trying to push to 9 as quickly as possible. I don't feel like that's a healthy state for the game to be in overall. Anyway, here I'm rolling it down. I'm trying to find, I'm actually in a very, very awkward position right now because I'm super close to hitting a whole bunch of units, but like I'm just barely missing these other units. Oh, I went by a Shi-OU there. I definitely should have picked up that Shi-OU for Antisocial. So I'm not actually seeing my units, but I am seeing some of his units. I'm really hoping that I can find an Aurelian Soul, but I'm not hitting one, unfortunately. So I definitely do pick up this Shi-OU here. So as I said, my board's in an awkward position because I have not quite managed to hit my 3 stars. I'm on 8 Silases, I'm on 7 Luxes, and I'm on 7 Skarners. But like I also need to clear out bench space to pick up units for Antisocial as well. So this was kind of a disappointing roll down for me here on level 8. I didn't manage to hit 3-star Lux. I didn't manage to hit 3-star Silas. I didn't manage to hit 3-star Skarner. I didn't find a Zoe. I didn't find an Aurelian Soul or an Alshin. I could have played Alshin temporarily at least. So as I said, a pretty bad roll down, and now I'm really worried about this game because we were in great shape, but like I kind of missed everything I needed to hit. All right, well here I'm going to go ahead and I find another Silas in the store. So at this point, we need to try, like I want to try to get this unit somehow, but like I don't have bench space. I don't really want to sell anything here. So we're trying to figure out if there's any way that we can do this so I can actually pick up this this Silas and send it over there. All right, so we're going to make the Shi-OU 2-star. So I think I sell the Shi-OU just to clear out bench space for the Silas here, if I remember correctly. Just because I'm capped out on space and I can't put any more units on my board. So as I said, I'm in an awkward position. I need to just hit one of these units. I'm going to have to keep rolling it down just so I can try to hit one of these units to clear out space on my bench. But unfortunately, I'm definitely not going to beat boards like this 3-star Yone until that happens. Like I'm still playing through 2-star Lux, which was great on stage 3, not so good on stage 4. It is not working here on stage 5. I definitely need to upgrade the quality of my board or else I'm going to keep losing these rounds. Anyway, so to get back to our overall retrospective, remember how I said there were too many econ traits? Well, that played into the last big issue I had with this set, and it really applied to the second half of the set. Right about halfway through set 7.5, the developers made a couple changes, and one of the big ones they made is they greatly buffed the dragon trait at its higher ranks. Earlier on in the set, people didn't really play more than 2 or 3 dragons. And the reason for that is Dragon 4, by the way, I hit the 2-star Siphon, so we're going to send that over to Antisocial. The reason for that is people didn't really want to play dragons that were at the like 4 dragon, 5 dragon. The benefits were just not very good. It just wasn't worth running that many dragons. So they wanted this set to be all about different dragons. So they buffed them significantly. By the way, I should totally pick up this Lily. I'm playing over the stupid Malphite who's not doing anything. So they buffed the dragon trait at the higher ranks, particularly at dragon 4, 5, and 6. They basically made dragon 4 much stronger and Dragon 5 much stronger. And then they added Dragon 6, which was not in the set to start. They basically made Dragon 6 an instant I win button. because the dragons would ascend and get just like a ridiculous number of stats when they ascended. So I don't think that that was a great idea. Again, I understand thematically they wanted the dragons to be these really strong units that people would play towards. But the big issue with that is because they put all these econ traits in the game and they made it so econ heavy in set 7.5, they then overbought the dragons, and they made it so most of the games just ended the same way. People would play super greedy, someone would get to level 9, they would hit their dragons, and then everybody was just playing towards the same dragon boards. The very standard dragon board was you would play Idis and Terra for frontline, then you'd play Shyvana, and then you would play Al-Shin, and like Shyvana, Al-Shin were the carries, and then you would add like Rakan, and if you could fit it, Bard onto the team comp. And there you go. You'd have like this super tanky front line that people couldn't get through. And then Shyvana would crash into your team and breathe fire on everybody. And Al-Shin would go off and his lightning would kill everything. By the way, I grabbed a Silas off the carousel so I would get 3-star Silas. I didn't really want the Morellos, but yeah, still worthwhile just to make the 3-star version of the unit. Anyway, my point is that just kind of led to very uninteresting, very boring setups for the late game because everybody was kind of playing towards the same units in the late game. It was very, very common for all of the end game boards to just be 4 dragons and then like 2 supportive units. Rakan was very popular to play in there as a supporting unit. And as I already mentioned, Bard could drop in there, blah, blah, blah. But like all these boards looked very, very similar. And it just wasn't very interesting that so many of the boards looked so similar for everybody. And I think that was a real mistake because by putting so many econ traits into the game and then also making it so that, you know, these 4 dragon, 5 dragon boards would outperform everything else, everybody was playing towards the same board at the late game. Like, that's not interesting. It's not fun when everybody's going to the same place at the end of each game. So I think that was a real mistake. And I actually think the balance was a little bit worse in the second half of the set than in the first half of the set, just because everybody playing towards 5 or 6 dragon boards was not interesting. Ah, well. All right, well, once again, I'm still in this awkward position. I did manage to hit the Silas 3-star. I got an Al-Shin finally coming over from Antisocialmunky. And now I'm in a position, again, where I have 8 Luxes and 8 Skarners, and I have the 1-star Al-Shin. I was like, oh, man, this is really, really annoying. I'm also still on these 5 mages. I can actually drop down to 3 mages now. And I probably should look to do that soon, as Talia can surely be replaced with a better unit. But I'm just looking to try to hit these units because, again, I'm so close to hitting some of these 3-stars. Oh, one other mistake I did make in this game is I should have gone towards Varus 3-star. With the Astral trait, I had pretty decent odds to hit Varus 3-star. Now, I'm hoping that I'm going to get more items out of my Astral Orbs because I do have an awful lot of star levels. I have 11 total star levels for Astral right now. And I think I have 5 2-stars, and then I have the Aurelian Soul that gets me to 11. So I'm absolutely at the point where items can start coming out of the orbs. And if I manage to 3-star like this, the Lux and if I 3-star the Lux, 3-star the Skarner, and then 2-star the Aurelian Soul, then I would be at what? 3, and then how many? Oh, there we go. There was the 3-star Lux. Wish I had hit that a little bit sooner. Didn't even. And then the Insult. I get it out of the Astral Orb after I already have it. That's certainly annoying. Anyway, but yeah, I would have 3 and 3 from a pair of 3-stars, and then 2, 2, 2. So that's 6 and 6 is 12, and then another 2. I could be at 14 star levels of Astral if I can 3-star the Skarner and then 2-star the Aurelian Soul. But I think I should have gone towards 3-star Varus, because I think I had decent odds to hit him because I'm going to keep getting Varuses out of the orbs. And I'm going to be rolling here. I'm not going to be planning to go to level 9. I'm going to stay here on level 8 and look for more units that can fit in here. In particular, I'm looking for more Al-Shins, or Aurelian Souls. I always get those two confused. And in particular, I'm looking for more Al-Shin. Wow, I did it again. Looking for more Aurelian Souls. I have not seen even one in the store this entire game. But the good news is Antisocial is finding some of them, and he's going to send me a 2-star version of Aurelian Soul relatively soon. Now I'm trying to space my units out for Astral, or for, what do you call it? For the shield value. Yes, that's it. For the additional shield value. I am starting to get some absolutely massive shields on the combination of Exiles plus Protectors of the Cosmos. Like, look how big these shields are on my frontline units. So again, I'm just hoping that this buys enough time to stall into the late game. So Aurelian Soul, God, I keep doing it. So Aurelian Soul can ascend here. Now, can Yone kill my entire team? Can we CC him? Come on, we just need to burst him down. Oh, he's so low. One more ult. The ult fizzled at the last second. All right, so Yone looks like he managed to win that one. Yeah, not quite able to, but clearly the 2-star Aurelian Soul would have been enough to win that fight. So we're getting there. We're getting there. I've also put Soraka onto the board so that she will heal our team for a little bit of extra health. Here in the 2-player mode, 1-star Soraka heals each of you for 1 HP when she casts. Anyway, we get the traditional item drop here on stage 6-2. And one of the options was a Spear of Shojin. So I'm going to take that for Lux. Now Lux is like a very serious damage threat in her own right. And so now I'm going to get a 2-star Aurelian Soul from Antisocial. Again, I have rolled a lot of gold and not seen this unit at all. So now I'm just going to be looking to roll. I'm hoping that I can now find some more of these units. At this point, our plan was we're going to go for 3-star Shiou because we've got a 2-star version on Antisocial's board. I have 2 of them on my bench. He has 2 on his bench. So we're at 7 of the unit right now. So we're actually getting pretty close to the 3-star version of the unit. And we think that that's what we need to try and win this lobby. Obviously, my board's going to keep scaling up. I've got the 2-star version of Aurelian Soul now, so that's going to make my board much stronger. I've also got Soraka for the heals. Remember, as I continue to get more items, my shields are just going to continue to get stronger and stronger via Protector of the Cosmos. Let's see. All right, so now we've ascended. Now we hit the whole board. Fortunately, we were able to kill the Crown of Champions units. Can I get the Deja? Yep, there we go. As soon as Deja's dead, this fight is over. That Idis is never going to kill anything. Can't even kill the Zerat minion. And yeah, there we go. So we actually knocked that team out. And this is going to come down to a duel between us and this one other team. Antisocial is going to get 3 AP items. Not quite what he wants with his team composition. That's very AD heavy. So he's actually going to take the Chalice out of those options. And I'm going to look to keep rolling here. I'm looking, I find a Zoe. Is that better than Soraka? Probably not. If I could somehow get up to 5 mages, it would probably be better, but no. And oh, it finally hit the 3-star Skarner. Part of the issue for my board is I'm actually at the point where I don't get Skarners out of the orbs anymore, specifically because I have so many ranks of Astral trait. Now I have 14 ranks of Astral. I no longer get the 1-cost units out of those orbs anymore. But yeah, now we've hit the 3-star Skarner, and that's actually quite big because the Exile Shield is based on percentage of max HP. And of course, by being a 3-star unit, Skarner gets a bigger shield because he has more HP. So Skarner and Silas are getting some pretty enormous shields there. I think they're each getting like 2,000 health shield, something nutty like that. And of course, we also have the 3-star Lux, and we have the Aurelian Soul, who has a blue buff, so he casts more often, has the Gunblade to heal us, and he's also got that Jeweled Gauntlet. So again, I just need him to ascend here in these fights. Skarner's still alive. It looks like Antisocial has lost his round. And oof, oh man, this other board, the Dragonmancer Kaisa board looks strong. All right, we got the cast off from Aurelian Soul. He did heal up to full. Oh, got another cast off as well, but can't get the 3rd cast off. He almost killed the whole board, but oof, we're down to 3 HP. We're down to 3 HP, so that's dangerous. Now we really need to go all in. So the plan now was, all right, we're down to, I guess we technically have 2 lives because you can't be eliminated when you're on 3 HP. But the plan is just, we're going to go all in. We're going to look for that Shiou 3-star. I have 1 send remaining. Or I have 2 sends remaining, but one is the cheap send. I can't send only for 1, 2, and 3 cost units. So only have 1 more expensive send. So just going to roll this down. Come on. 1 more Shiou. Come on. Come on. Come on. Oh, we hit it. It's actually there. Okay. So I'm going to send that over. There you go. Antisocial. It's going to go up on his board and boom. 3-star Shiou. Also, look what I get out of the orb. I actually get a Spear of Shojin here for my extra items. Like, oh, okay. Well, how about we put that on Soraka? Let's get her to cast more often. I think that the Soraka is probably the most useful additional unit I could play. I did also have the Zoe option, as I mentioned, but it doesn't get me to 5 mages. And I also could have played Bard, which would not have been a bad option as well. But like Bard will not make Mystic trait. So I actually think the Soraka is probably the best fit because I want her healing my front line. Again, everything is about stalling. We just want to stall for the Aurelian Soul to ramp up to get that ascension and to kill the enemy team. And boom, down goes the Kaisa. There we go. It's just his units could not cut through my front line fast enough. Look at the Soraka heals landing on the Lux there, keeping her alive. So this is the stronger of the 2 boards. But we were just able to beat that one. And now that we've got that 3-star Shiou, now we're starting to feel more confident. ASM's board, of course, spikes enormously. He has a very well itemized Shiou. And oh, look at this. A Shroud of Stillness out of the Astral trait. Yes, I will take that. That's going to come in handy. By the way, I definitely should be picking up these Varuses. As I said, really should have gone for Varus 3-star. But that said, if I had not had enough gold to hit the Shiou 3-star, It was worth it if it helped us get to the Shiou 3-star. All right, anyway, though, so now we're going to be up against the other player, the Zippy player, and I don't think this person is aware that I just got a Shroud out of my Astral Orb, because, come on, someone doesn't normally get a Shroud on stage 6-6, right? You don't normally get items on that particular round, but yeah, they do not move out of the way. I'm able to Shroud almost their entire team. Look at the Silas tanking. He just gets healed by Soraka, applying that Morello's burn to the enemy front line. And now we've got time for the Aurelian Soul to ascend. There we go. Ult's going to hit the whole board. Boom. Also going to heal my team thanks to the Gunblade. And of course, the 3-star Shiou is going to win that round over there. So the other team's board, not bad at all. Definitely not a weak board. But we think that we've probably outscaled them by this point in time. And oh, what's this? Another component. Okay, I don't know that I have a good use for this sparring glove. So I think I just end up tossing it on Vlad for the shield value. Again, it's a lot like playing Scrap in set 6. It's pretty fun. Anyway, so we're hoping we can just win this last round. By the way, this was hilarious. 3 Zephyrs on the minion round. I got a Zephyr. Antisocial got a Zephyr. One of their players got a Zephyr. And then I think the last person got a Death Cap or something. We were like, wow, all these Zephyrs. What the heck? This is pretty weird. So yeah, just RNG. Everybody got Zephyrs apparently. Well, in any case, I'm going to roll this down now. I'm looking for a Soraka 2-star. I don't really think I'm going to hit that. I'm rolling past more Varuses and Vlads, but not going to be able to 3-star those units at this point in time. Yeah, there are a lot of Varuses in the store there. Again, I think I could have 3-starred this unit, but it's going to work out just fine. Oh, that other person did hit Zippy 3-stars. So like that's pretty scary as well. But we think we've got this. I'm going to position the Zephyr onto the Varus, and I think that I'm going to be able to hit one of their 2 Dragon Mancer units if I do this. There we go. Yep, I'm going to be able to hit that Karma. Up we go. Look at the huge shields. But because this is the last round of the game, I'm going to go watch Antisocial's board. I want to watch the 3-star Shiou. So keep your eyes on that monster Shiou. Titan's Resolve, Bloodthirster, and Edge of Night. That's probably blessed in slot items for her. She is really difficult. Oh, she just punched the lights out on that Zippy. So yep, Zippy 3-star does not beat Shiou 3-star. And it's pretty one-sided. That Shiou is not going to die to anything. Not anything that those players had. So ASM wins his round. I win my round. Yes, I did win my round as well, even though we didn't see it. And that's going to be it. So GG, we are going to take our first in this one. A very entertaining game. It had actually been like I think it had been about 3 weeks since I had played a double-up game. And when we were playing this game, I was like, wow, I kind of forgot how much fun the 2-player mode is. It's a lot more fun than the single-player mode, that's for sure. Well, anyway, hope you enjoyed watching this video, enjoyed this little retrospective looking back at set 7.5. As I said, I think it was a decent set. It was definitely better than the first half of the set, but I'm hoping that set 8 will be a little bit better. So we will see what we get. Should be exciting times in the weeks ahead. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, take care, folks.